All right, page 33 in your textbooks, and have your homework out if you would. You did 1 through 28, the teal. We're practicing with our latest factoring method, and it was factoring a trinomial that wasn't necessarily a perfect square trinomial, but at least had a descending order to it. And what kind of trinomials were we factoring in our last lesson? Abby?
I'm blanking. I can't.
Starts with a Q?
Quadratic.
Quadratic trinomials. And we said that a quadratic trinomial will factor into what, Michael?
Two binomials.
Specifically, two binomials that will be class similar to each other. Two similar binomials. And the method we use to factor these quadratic trinomials, Genesis, we call, well, backwards FOIL, or Leoff, if you prefer. Let's go ahead and see how we did with our backwards FOIL on numbers 1 through 28, the teal. Number 1, Audrey, what was your answer?
X plus 2 times x minus 4.
Good, and remember, because multiplication is commutative, if you had x minus 4 times x plus 2, that would also be correct. Okay, so as long as x plus 2 was one of the two factors, and x negative 4 was the other factor, we're good to go there. Number 2, your answer, Genesis.
X plus 7 times x minus 3.
Great job, x minus 3 and x plus 7, the factors. Number 5, what did you get, Brandon?
X plus 2 times x plus 12.
Good, x plus 12 times x plus 2. Number 6, Michael.
X minus 9 times x plus 4.
Good, x plus 4 times x minus 9. Number 8, what did you get, Maddie?
2x negative 1 times 3x positive 2.
Good, 2x negative 1 times 3x positive 2. Number 11, your answer, Abby.
3x plus 1 times 4x minus 5.
Good, 3x positive 1 times 4x negative 5. A lot of ways we could have split up that 12x squared. 2x and 6x, 3x and 4x, 1x and 12x. We ended up needing the 3x and the 4x there. And then number 12, let's go back to Audrey.
7 times x plus 1 times 4x minus 9.
Good, get the common factor out first. You factored out the 7, which initially left you with what, Audrey? In your first step, you pulled out the common factor there on 12. What was your initial answer before you backwards FOILed?
4x minus 5x minus 9.
Good, 4x squared negative 5x negative 9. And then from here, you've got to split it up. And again, my initial thought on a 4x squared is 2x and 2x, right? Probably, so that's probably where I would start. And then negative sign class tells me positive, negative, and probably I'd split up a 9 normally, 3 and 3. But wait a second. If I wrote that, then what do we call this thing? Sum and difference, and that's how we factor a difference of squares, right? My outer inner cancels out, so it can't be 3 and 3 with the 2 and 2. Well, I mean, if it's not 3 and 3, class, that only leaves 1 and 9. But negative 18, positive 2, and that's when we realize the problem isn't with this factor necessarily. The problem's here with the 4. So if it's me just doing the factoring, I'd probably go back to my 3 and 3 and say, well, it's not 2 and 2, it's 4 and 1. Okay, now the outer class. Negative 12, inner, positive 3. That doesn't work either. Well, I mean, switching the 4 with the 1 doesn't do anything because it's 3's in both cases, so maybe it is 1 and 9. And I know I'm not going to put 9 out here because that's 36, right? So maybe if I put the 9 here and, oh, there we go, outer class, negative 4, inner, positive 9. There we almost go. What does that give me? Positive 5. So then we'll change the signs, and a lot of trial and error potentially went into this. How many got the correct answer like Audrey did on number 12? Good, most of you stuck with that trial and error and got it. Anyone perfect on those first 7? Perfect on the first 7. Good, several. I'll have questions from those who were not. Any of them we need to see worked out. This one I knew could have been a real problem for us, so I wanted to take a look at that. Any others? All right, now as we look at numbers 17 to 28, the teal problems, here we had 2 variables. So we're splitting up, for instance, on number 17, a 3x squared, and then at the end it's not just a 2, but a 2y squared that ends up getting split up. Curious to see how we did here. Number 17, Genesis, your answer?
1x minus 1y times 3x plus 2y.
Let's take a look at that. Well, give me your answer again.
1x minus 1y times 3x plus 2y.
Because you were splitting up a 3x squared, right? And at the end you had a sign that was negative, so you knew the signs had to be different. You're splitting up a 2y squared. What was the outer inner supposed to give us? No, look at number 17 in your book. What's the outer inner supposed to give us? In your textbook. Number 17. What's the outer inner supposed to give us?
3.
No, the outer inner. What's it supposed to give us?
Oh, 6x.
Looking at number 17. What's the middle term?
Oh.
Negative 5xy. So this is my goal from the outer inner. This is what outer inner is supposed to give me. When I do my outer, though,
Positive 2x.
and inner,
Negative 3x.
oh, that's not going to work. That gives me a negative 1xy. So that means we need to change up the numbers. Instead of 1 and 2, 2 and 1. Now the outer gives us, and the inner, there we go. There's my negative 5xy. So again, I've got no problem with you initially writing what you had, but you've got to check that outer inner and see, does it really match what I'm supposed to have? Because if not, mix it up a little bit until we get what we need. This should have been our answer here for 17. Number 18, Brandon.
I got 9x plus 4y times 3x minus 2y.
All right, now you had different signs on number 18. You said one of them was positive, the other was negative, but look at number 18 in the book. We've got a positive 8y squared at the end. What is a positive supposed to tell me?
They're all going to be positive.
Signs are the same, and in this particular case, because we have a positive here as well, both signs should have been positive. So let's rethink it a little bit. You said we're going to split this up. You said 9x, 3x? All right, and that's what I would go with as well, because it's either that or 1 and 27, which I don't think is going to be right. Should have identified both signs positive, and then you split the 8y squared into
4 and 2.
4y, 2y? All right, which is what I would go with as well. There are no common factors, right? So I don't have to worry about that. But I've got to check that outer inner. What's the outer?
18x.
And the inner?
12x.
Ooh, what does that give me? 30. I need a 42. So I've got to change up some things here. So maybe instead of 4 and 2, okay, good. And I like that you didn't bail and immediately say, well, let's try 8 and 1. No, we can just try flipping it. Instead of 4 and 2, let's try 2 and 4. Let's see what happens now. Now the outer,
36.
xy, and the inner.
6xy.
There's my 42xy. So again, take a moment, check the outer inner, make sure it becomes what we need in the middle, and if not, fix it till it gets there, and make sure we stick with it. Anyone get both 17 and 18 correct? All right, those who missed one, questions. Do we see now how to think through the outer inner? All right, let's go to number 21, and Michael.
I got 7 times 2x minus 7y times x plus 3y.
Good. Getting the common factor out first to get a 2x squared negative 1xy negative 21y squared, and then backwards FOILing that. Keep the 7, don't lose the 7, times a 2x negative 7y times an x positive 3y. Number 24. This one's an interesting one. We didn't get a chance to work one of these in class yesterday. And technically, this should have been MN, by the way, not NM. And we always put letters alphabetically. Thoughts on this one here? Maddie? Yeah, if we're going to lead with the n squared, if that's going to be my first term, we've got to factor out a negative. Now, that's one possibility. What's something else we could do to avoid factoring out a negative?
Change it. The negative 16 squared.
To, specifically maybe to the back and pull the 3m squared to the front, right? So if you made the 3m squared your first term, negative 2mn properly written here, and then your negative 16n squared, now you don't have to factor out a negative. Anyone do that? You realize just doing that takes care of it? Okay, Abby saw that. How many like Maddie? This is bugging me, so I'm going to have to... but how many saw like Maddie, we got to factor out the negative? Okay, one of the two has to happen. I'm going to show both ways. Now, the thing I like about this is you lead with an easier number as well. 3 is much easier to split up than the other. So 3m squared, Abby would split into?
3m and m.
And of course the negative sign.
Different signs.
One's positive, one's negative. Now don't lose the sight of the n squared here in the split. In fact, what I would recommend doing, class, is before you even think about the 16, because that's where the trial and error is going to be, right? No, this didn't work, this didn't work. You're going to get so locked in on the 16, you're going to forget the n squared. I'm going to put in the n's first. Then I'll think about the 16. Thoughts on the 16?
2 and 8.
2 and 8? I was thinking 4 and 4, but even as I kind of 12 and 4, no. So you said 2 and 8, that's 24 and 2, maybe
8 and 2.
8 and 2. Okay, that's negative 6 and 8 is positive 2. I'll just change the signs. This is one answer we could have. And you're kind of seeing, as I'm talking through, the trial and error that has to go on in your brain. First is if we do it this way, Maddie, you said pull out the negative, which is initially going to give us
16
and then from here, we can keep the negative, because technically this is a negative 1. That's a common factor just as much as anything else. Don't lose the negative. We'll backwards FOIL. Maddie, how did you split up your 16n squared? 2n, 8n, as opposed to 4 and 4. Signs? One's positive, one's negative. And really the only good way to split up a 3m squared, an m and a 3m, and I didn't even have a 10 in it. We were picking on her before class started, in case you're wondering. That wasn't totally random. That started because Genesis was picking on her. I blame Genesis for this. And then we check our outer inner here. That's a negative 6, positive 8 gives positive 2, and that's what we want. So this answer would also work. By the way, these are the exact same thing. Notice m plus 2n, 2n plus m, those are the same. And then 3m minus 8n, if you changed the signs, the 8n would become positive. The 3m would become negative because of this negative out front. These are both correct answers. Either of them is correct. How many had one of these for this problem? Excellent questions. Questions on that. We're going to look a little bit more at this factoring out the negative thing today as well. Same thing has to come up here on number 27, but it's not just a negative we factor out. Oh, wait, there's more. What did we factor out on 27, Audrey? Yeah, let's start there. Let's pull out the negative 2. And what will we be left with as we pull out the negative 2?
5x squared.
Well, 5x to the 4th, right?
Yeah, it's positive 8.
Okay, we're on number 27. Right, we're pulling out a negative 2. That's all we're doing right now. Just factoring out a negative 2.
23.
So negative 23.
X squared, y squared, and negative.
Well, but you're pulling out a negative 2, so
Positive 12 y to the 4th.
there we go. Didn't give myself quite enough room there. This should have been our initial step. How many had that initial step of pulling out the negative 2? Okay, excellent. Now from here, Audrey, we're going to backwards FOIL. And the only real way to split up the 5x to the 4th?
5x and x.
Good, 5x squared and x squared. And the sign here, this positive tells me what, class?
It's the same.
Signs are the same, but they're both going to be, Michael.
They're both gonna be, what do you mean? A y squared?
What signs are we going to have right here?
Oh, negative.
Both negative. This tells me they're going to be the same. This tells me what sameness they're going to be. Are they both positive or both negative? They're both negative. And then 12y to the 4th. How might we split that up, Genesis?
You can either just put 1 and 12, 3 and 4, 2 and 6.
Pick one.
I did 4 and 3.
4 and 3. All right, so 4. And so we're going to split the 12 as 4 and 3. Don't forget to split the y to the 4th up. Y squared and y squared. Let's check our outer inner here. Outer class? Negative 15. Inner? Negative 4. Negative 15 and negative 4 gives me? Negative 19. Okay, so not quite there. So not 4 and 3, Genesis. Let's try 3 and 4. It might be 2 and 6, but let's try 3 and 4 before we bail on those two numbers. Let's just try switching places. Outer now, class? Negative 20. Inner? Negative 3. Negative 20, negative 3 gives me? Negative 23, but we are not finished. Look at what we have. Thoughts? Abby sees it.
We have a difference of squares.
We have a difference of squares right here still. And a difference of squares, class, factors into a sum and difference. So we're going to keep the negative 2. Finish this at your seats, assuming you didn't already get it for homework. Keep the negative 2. keep the 5x squared negative 3y squared, but instead of x squared negative 4y squared, we're going to factor that again into what, Abby?
Conjugates.
Which are?
Sum and difference.
Right?
X plus 2y times x minus 2y.
There we go. X plus 2y and x minus 2y. And there's our completely factored answer. It didn't sound like any of you got this last night, which doesn't surprise me. We haven't done anything like this in class. We're going to practice with more of these today. But I was curious if anyone had gotten it. Good job, Abby, at least seeing it. Questions? All right, this is welcome to Algebra 2, right? So those who remember factoring in Algebra 1, and then you're like, ooh, this is ramped up a little bit. Yes. All right, let's take a look at number 28. And no common factors, so it's a little bit more straightforward. Brandon.
6x squared plus 1y squared times 5x squared plus 7y squared.
Great job. 6x squared plus y squared, 5x squared plus 7y squared are your two factors. Questions on these last six. A lot more involved, right? That second letter messes with things a little bit. We saw a negative have to be factored out a couple of times, actually. We saw something that factored multi-level here. Again, fourth powers oftentimes mean multi-level factoring, so watch for that. Any questions? Let's practice just a few more of these. I want you to do 13 through 16, same page. 13 through 16, they're on page 33. We'll go back to practicing with just the single letter. 13 through 16, they're on page 33. Tom's not a bad guy. I could lose my job. So we know. Stand here and watch you spring into action. Oops, had a taser. for sake of time, pencils down, even if you're not finished with these 4 problems. I did want to go over them with you. Did anyone happen to notice that there's a 6 common to everything? All right? I probably wouldn't have thought to look for a 6. Like, after seeing it, I realized, yeah, okay, obviously I know there's a 6 there. A lot of times, if there's a leading small number, just give it a try. But divisibility rules, it's even, so it's divisible by 2. And if you add up the digits, it's divisible by 3. So, yeah, 6 could have come out. But let's just say, hey, I see they're even numbers, right? So I pull out the 2. I'm like, wait, 3? There's a 3? Now I thought to add up the digits. Okay, there's a 3. So I pulled out not just the 2 from earlier, I now pulled out another 3 to get it down to a really easy binomial or trinomial factor, and we've got the 6 here. So get the common factors out, make your life easier. How many ended up at this point like I did, even if you didn't get the 6 right off? Okay, questions on this? Looking at the next one, now, to be honest, I did see the 4 in this one, but I thought, well, I've already showed this one in 2 steps, more or less by accident. Let me just show this in 2 steps. So I at least see that they're even, I pull out a 2. They're still even, I pull out another 2, which gives me a 4, and I started with a 4x, 2x, and that led to a problem. I'm looking at like 4 and 2. Remember, I've got all the common factors out. How do you factor a 6? 1 and 6, which is even, or 2, which is even, and 3. I can't put a 6 with either if I have a 4 and 2. They're both even. And it dawns on me, well, 4 and 2 must not be it. It's got to be 8 and 1. Both signs negative. If we put the 3 here, the 2 here, yep, outer inner checks. There's our answer. How many got this for number 14? All right, questions on that one? Look at the next one. This was the only easy one we had, really, in my opinion. I'm like, surely there's no way it's 1 and 56 or even 2 and 28. Surely, okay? Surely it's 7 and 4, or 7 and 8. So I went with 7x and 8x. Signs had to be positive, negative. And I was thinking probably 4 and 3, right? But not 4 with the 8, because that'd be a common factor. So put the 3 with the 8, the 4 with the 7x, and hey, worked out great the first try. It's the only one I got on the first try. Questions on this one? How many got this answer on number 15, those who made it that far? All right. And then on the last one, saw a common factor of 2, which factored out easily. The 30, actually I did get this one on the first try because I stood here for forever and did it all in my head at the outer inner multiple combinations till I figured out 3 and 10 to go with the 7 and 1, which you knew it had to be 7 and 1. You knew you had to have different signs. It was just putting the 3 and 10 together in just the right way to get the positive 11 from the outer inner. How many got this on the last one? Again, only a few of you made it that far, but questions? Questions on basic, I say basic, backwards FOIL questions here. Let's try a little bit with a double letter now. Let's do just a few of those, 20, 22, and 23. I'm going to do 20, 22, and 23. Pause. Any common factors in this first one? No, impossible. You got a prime number here. Unless this is common to everything, but I know 19 doesn't go evenly to 56. No common factors, and boy, we're left breaking up of 117. I do notice, though, that if I add up the digits of 1, 1, and 7, I get what, class?
9.
9. So So I know there's a 9 in there. Maybe use that to help you split it up. Look at the next one. I don't know anything about 228, but I do know what big number can go into both 72 and 84 from our times tables. 12. Maybe there's a 12 in here. I don't know. It's worth a try, is my thought. And then here, I also noticed there's a 12, but we already know 12 can't go into 100, right? Maybe another number?
4.
4? Ah, yeah. If 4 works into 96, I know it goes in here because the double zero. 4 times 6 I can do in my head. Maybe 4 goes in there. Just some thoughts as you work. All right, Kendall, we are on page 33, and we're working on 2022 and 23. Let me see your homework real quick, and then you can check it with the video this evening. It was the teal 1 through 28. Good. All right, yeah, check your answers against the video tonight. Is it? I had it right the first time. Add math on my outer. Those watching on YouTube, if you were working on your paper just now, if you were to rewind and watch as I work the problems, you kind of see the trial and error taking place. As I try one thing, try another. Okay, got it now. And that's what it takes, sticking with it until you get it figured out. And for sake of time, check the answers. Even if you just got the first one done, check your answers, check how you were doing so far on the ones maybe you were working on. Anyone say I'm perfect on all the one or ones I did, or I was on the right track maybe on ones I was working on? How many feel like, yes, I'm good to go, I think I've got this pretty well? Anyone say, okay, I'm really confused how you did blank? All right, so everyone understands what I did, even if you didn't have time to get to one of these things. All right, got some classwork for you. Set your books aside for a little bit. We'll get back to them later. And I mentioned there's some special weird little things. I mean, sometimes it's just big numbers, right? Which is what we were just looking at. Some big obnoxious numbers, which, as long as you're nice to the math teacher, you probably won't see on quizzes or tests. And, you know, if you tick me off, then, you know, I'll change up my quizzes and tests and give you big, massive things like those, you know. Everybody fails. And then you're in my class again next year. Stuck in a bad spot here. Write this down if you would. -4m squared, positive 11m, and positive 3n squared. We talked about this yesterday and already looked at it in homework once, but when we have a polynomial with a leading negative, we've got a couple options. open to us. The first option, Kendall, would be to
Factor out the negative.
factor out the negative. And that's perhaps the most direct approach, which would leave us with what?
4m squared, negative 11mn, negative 3m squared.
Good. What was the other option? Abby named it earlier, so I want to see if somebody besides Abby remembers this. I know she knows. Brandon?
Pull the negative 4m to the back.
If you were to trade places here, instead of the m descending, m squared, n to the first, n gone, it would be n squared, n to the first, n gone. So you still have one of the letters descending, but now you have a positive at the beginning. Kind of like I say, it's your choice which one you want to do, but this may be the quickest, most direct way to approach it. And then from here, we would just backwards FOIL. Where 4m squared, anyone? 1m, 4m, says Genesis. I was thinking 2m, 2m, but hey, we'll try hers first. If it doesn't work, we go with 2m, 2m. It's not a big deal. We're not going to sweat it. Negative sign, class? Positive, negative. All right. Only way to do 3n squared. 3n and 1n. All right, outer. Negative 1mn, inner. 12mn gives us positive 11mn. So all we have to do, switch the signs. So Genesis, you were right. It's not 2 and 2. It's 1 and 4 that we need this time. How do you know that? You don't. Just try it, give it a guess, and roll with it. Now, you could say 4 and 3 together give 12. Which is really close to the 11. So maybe I need to keep the 4 and 3 together, and the 1s give you the 11 after that. So maybe there was a little more foresight to Genesis than I'm giving her credit for. I'll write this one down. 6r squared, negative 33rs, positive 15s squared. By the way, make sure your s's are smaller than your 5s, because a lot of times an s can look a lot like a 5 if it's the same size. So make sure your 5s are bigger and the s's are smaller. Thoughts on what we should do first here, Michael?
Factor out the 3.
Yeah, I should see a 3 common to everything. What does that give us?
It gives us 2r squared, negative 11rs, positive 5s squared.
All right, and then from here, the backwards FOIL should be pretty straightforward because there's really only one way to split up a 2r squared class. 2r, 1r, or just r. Signs?
Negative.
Have to both be negative, no guesswork there. The only good way to split up a 5s squared.
1 and 5.
1s and 5s. The question is if 1 and 5 or 5 and 1, but try your outer inner real quick.
10 and 1.
Negative 10, negative 1. There's the negative 11. Sure enough, first try. Sometimes that happens. I love it when that happens. Write this one down. 80 p squared, positive 42 pq, negative 5 q squared. Again, make sure your q's are set lower, okay? So that way it doesn't look like a 9. You know, small strategy tips here for neatness. Thoughts here, Genesis? No, I mean, it looks like maybe a 2, and then we get to the 5, we're like, nope. So, backwards FOIL it. 80. What are you thinking? Why not 8 and 10? Let's give it a try. 8p, 10p. Signs, Maddie. Positive, negative. Really, the only good way to split up the 5q squared, Maddie. But I'm not going to, class, put a 5q with a 10p because they would have a common 5, right? And there wasn't a common 5 up here. So I'm going to put the 5q here and the 1q there. All right, let's see how it plays out. Outer, inner. And I'm getting a nod, yeah. First try. So many different ways to split up an 80. If she goes with 4 and 20 or 2 and 40 or 1 and 80, certainly 5 and 16. There's a number of ways, but got lucky with the 8 and 10. Hey, give it a try, see what happens. If it didn't work, try something else. The good news is, if we messed it up, we knew it wasn't the 1 and 5, right? That's it, right? So if it just wasn't working out, the 8 and 10 are what we would have changed. Write this one down. 14d to the 6th, negative 7d cubed w squared, negative 147 w to the 4th. Again, I'm not threatening you or anything. Let's go to Audrey. Right, let's get the 7 out right off the bat.
minus b cubed times w squared, negative 21w equals.
All right, and then from here, how would I split up a 2d to the 6th, Audrey?
2d cubed and d cubed.
Good, a 1d cubed and a 2d cubed. Just cut it right down the middle. 3d's there, 3d's there. When you multiply, you get your 6d's. My science class? Positive, negative. And then a 21w to the 4th. What are you thinking on that one, Abby?
3 and 7.
All right, and let's check our outer inner.
W squared.
Oh, w squared, good. Don't want to lose the letter there. All right, now check your outer inner. Negative 14, positive 3. No. Okay, so not 3 and 7, Abby. Try again.
7 and 3.
All right, let's try 7 and 3. All right, now outer inner class. 7 and negative 6 is positive 1.
Just change the sign.
Now we just change the signs. Again, trial and error, but you stay with it. And there we go. Okay? So it took a few tries, but it didn't take a long time, right? Just progress, you put it down. You don't sit there staring at it, trying to figure it out in your head first. Just put something down, let it move you through quickly. Oh, one more here. Z to the 4th, negative 10z squared, positive 24. Z to the 4th, negative 10z squared, positive 24. And after the ones we've just been working, this kind of looks like an insult, doesn't it? Take this one all by yourself here, Kendall. So we look for someone to insult. She's like, what happened to Brandon? You were gone and we voted on you to be picked on today.
Let me just backwards form.
Right?
Z squared, negative and negative. 6 and 4.
All right, check your outer inner. And I'm getting a nod. Thoughts. Abby's hand goes up. Audrey's hand goes up. Genesis' hand goes up. Brandon's hand goes up. Michael sighs a big sigh of despair. Michael, what should we be seeing here?
There's some indifference.
Yeah, from which of these? Both of them?
No, just the one on the right.
Just this one. This one's not a difference of squares because 6 isn't a square. So we'll keep the z squared minus 6, but the z squared minus 4, Mr. Sigh of Despair, can factor into...
Z squared plus 4, z squared minus...
Ooh, we have to split up the z squared.
Z plus 4.
Well, we have to split up the z squared into z and z,
Yes.
plus and minus, and split up the 4 into...
2.
There we go. Good. And what you said just a minute ago, I've seen on quizzes and tests, they're like, oh, 4, let's split that into 4 and 4. Oh, wait a second. That's not splitting anything, right? So be careful there. And this would be our final answer on this one. Questions on this? Questions on backwards FOIL in general. We feel like we've got a good handle on it. All right. Next section of notes, we have one more factoring method that we need to get in our notes here. It's our last thing on the poster. I've actually got one more up my sleeve that isn't going to be on the poster because it's kind of weird, but we'll save that for later. For now, last method in your notes, grouping. Grouping terms. Factoring by grouping. You're going to use this for 4 or 6 term polynomials. Polynomials that are 4 terms or 6 terms. We can factor by grouping. And the objective of grouping is to find a common binomial factor. To find a common binomial factor. We're used to a common monomial factor. Well, the point of grouping is essentially to find a common binomial factor. I should point out, this doesn't work for every 4-term polynomial or every 6-term polynomial. This is all you've got for a 4 or 6-term polynomial. And if it works, great. If it doesn't work, well, you just can't factor it. So write this down. Well, at least not through conventional means. Okay, next chapter we'll actually get into a method you could use, but we'll save it for later. Write this down in your notes if you would. Ax plus ay plus bx plus by. The purpose of the goal of factoring or grouping is to group sets of 2 oftentimes. Technically, you can do sets of 3 for a 6-term polynomial and say there's nothing common to everything, but in the first group there is something common, class. Hey, if we'll factor out the a just from the first group, it leaves us with. And in the second group, what's common? Just a positive b, and if I pull that out, I'm left with x plus y. Now, how many terms do I have? No longer 4, but 2. Ax plus y and bx plus y. And there is a common factor. If this said AC plus BC, class, we would say what's common? C. And we pull it out and we'd be left with A plus B, right? Well, it's not a C. It's an x plus y. Common binomial. But just as we can pull a C to the front, I can pull an x plus y to the front. And if I pull the x plus y out, what am I left with? A plus B. And there's my completed factoring. Make sure you have this example in your notes. Then write this one down. Cm negative mx negative ac negative ax, or positive ax. Make sure I got that right. Again, there is nothing common to everything, though I should always look for that common monomial, but I can at least see something common in the first 2 terms, class. M to leave us with c minus x. And in the next 2 terms, it's not just an a. Because the first term is negative, I've got to factor out a negative a. Does that make sense? Just like earlier, when we had a negative first term, factor out the negative. Here it's going to be a negative a that gets factored. And in parentheses, I'm left with c. And when I divide negative a from a positive ax, it gives me negative x. We're changing the signs as we divide out the negative, right? And now we can see what's common to this term and that term. C minus x. And if I pull out c minus x, what's left? M minus a. Questions on these first 2 examples? Questions on these first 2? How many remember this from Algebra 1? We did do this in Algebra 1, but we didn't do it very much. All right, let's write this one down now. AXY plus AY minus 2AX minus 2A. Now this time there is something common to everything. What's common to everything, class? A. However, my recommendation is to leave the A in there for now. I've found in my experience it actually makes it harder to do the factoring if you pull out the common monomial. So I'm going to break what I've always said. I've always said get the common factor out first. Well, because our goal is a common binomial, let's leave the A for now, and we'll pull it out separately from each of these. So for my first group, class, we have AY common, and ooh, what does that leave me with? X plus 1. Remember, if you factor something out of itself entirely, that's dividing by itself, you get a 1. What do I factor out of the second group? Good, I'm glad you didn't say 2A. Negative 2A. And what am I left with when I pull a negative 2A from each of these? X positive 1. Now what's common to both terms? And I'm going to pull out the A and the X plus 1 in this step. That just makes the factoring easier. I'm going to pull out the A, I'm going to pull out the X plus 1. What's left if I take A and X plus 1 from everything? Y negative 2. And I still end up with that common factor of A out front. But if you pull it out too soon, you end up having to use brackets and it gets confusing. Again, mathematicians are lazy. It's all about finding the easiest way to do everything, right? And I have found the easiest way is, even though the A is there, pull it out separately in each group, and then you can pull it out down here. And that just works easiest in my mind. Write this one down now. X cubed, negative 16. Positive 4, x squared, negative 4x. Even as you were writing it, something should have felt just a little off. Thoughts, Brandon? I could write it as 4 squared, I guess. So, Abby?
Descending order.
He figured it out. We're used to descending order for everything. Remember, we're factoring. Factoring is division. And so if we're dividing here, we do want descending order. So let's rearrange this, Brandon.
X squared cubed and positive 4x squared negative 4x and negative 6.
All right, and now we can find what's common. By the way, do you notice in the first group, if we don't rearrange, there's nothing common anyway? I'm kind of like, So getting the descending order a lot of times is going to help you here. Now that we've rearranged, what's common in the first group, Maddie? An x squared, and in parentheses. And what's common in the second group here, Michael?
4.
No.
Negative 4.
Negative 4. And if I pull out a negative 4, what's left?
X plus 4.
Good, x positive 4. And now I've got a common binomial. What's my common binomial, Genesis? X plus 4. And if I factor that out of both of my terms, what am I left with? X squared minus 4. Audrey? Another difference of squares factors into another sum and difference. So I'm going to keep the x plus 4 and then factor x squared minus 4, of course, into x plus 2x minus 2. And there's my completely factored answer. Questions on how to factor by grouping. You're going to try this in your homework this evening. We were supposed to have some time to practice, but we didn't get to it. So your practice will be in your homework tonight, where normally I'd have preferred you to have some more time to practice in class. Any questions, though, before we wrap up? All right. Homework for this evening is to do page 38. Page 38. Practice 1.6. Numbers 1 through 9 odd. That's at the top of the page. Page 38, practice 1.6 at the top of the page, 1 through 9 odd. Page 38, review 1.6, that's in the middle of the page. Page 38, review 1.6 in the middle of the page, 1 through 12 all. And we're not doing anything on the bottom of the page. So there's actually 3 sections on the same page. We're doing top 1 through 9 odd and middle 1 through 12 all. Okay. You're going to have a test coming up on Friday. That's lesson 18 for those watching on YouTube. Lesson 18 will be test 1, and we'll cover everything through what we talked about today, which we'll be reviewing more tomorrow, doing a big test review Thursday, test Friday. All right, when the bell rings, you'll be dismissed. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And I totally forgot to bring the camera back over here so you could actually see all the notes, but hopefully you got it from what I said or you are getting it now. At least you got to see all the example problems. Better than sometimes. Anyway, have a good day, YouTube.